So John Harbaugh, Sarah, fielded several questions during his Monday press conference, just a 7-minute press conference. And it almost ended after
Yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah.
2
Luckily, they
questions.
reeled it back in. I heard Jeff being like, John, like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't, maybe they were tweeting on their phones after he like gave his comment on Deontay Johnson, but
Yeah.
they almost lost him. I'm glad
They
they brought him
almost
back.
did. He walked off the podium from what I could see from the microphone. This was an outdoor. I believe this is outdoors. And the YouTube screen went to "Thank you for watching" as if it was
Yes.
over.
Yes.
Then they had to, on the production side of things, bring him back on screen. And so luckily reporters were able to kind of get a few more in, one of
Yeah.
which was about the buy-in that you tweeted about.
Right. Well, we'll play it and then we can talk about it on the other end here. Yeah. So Jeff Strebeck asked him, like, are you nervous about locker room buy-in with their individual roles? And he cited, Eddie Jackson, Marcus Williams, and Deontay Johnson as examples. Here's John.
In the locker room in terms of roles and all that, or is that just always a challenge in individual situations?
I think we've been doing great. I mean, we got guys that are out there playing heck hard. You talking about the receiver room? Is that what you're talking about?
Not just receiver room, I was talking about Eddie Jackson and Marcus Williams. And
yeah, guys have been professional. They work hard. Guys want to play. And, it's based on opportunity. It's based on performance. It's based on need. All those things. Our locker room has been fantastic. Guys have been working hard. You saw the way they practice out here today. So I'm really happy. You see how hard they play every single week. We're in a great place, and I love our guys.
The classic, I love our guys. Everybody hates it when he says that. So he says guys have been professional. They work hard. Guys want to play. It's based on opportunity, performance, need, all of those things. Our locker room has been fantastic. So we'll react in just a minute. Meanwhile, Bobby, the reporters then went inside the locker room and they talked specifically to the receivers, Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, about Deontay Johnson. What did they have to say there?
Yes, this is courtesy of Bowie TV and reporter Karita Parks catching up with Zay on that very topic.
He one of my guys. He one of our guys, so I really got much to say about it.
So he'd absolutely be welcome back, say?
Yeah, he'll be welcome back.
Is it difficult to block that distraction out?
It's not a distraction.
No,
it's not a distraction.
And as for Rashad, fellow wide receiver, Jamison Hensley transcribed what he had to say on this topic, which was, quote, "We understand both sides, and there are consequences that come with this game. I know he'll be back soon, and that's all we worry about." And if you've been living under a rock and just straight up ignored all content over the last week, you may not know that Deontay Johnson was suspended for 1 game. He will not practice this week, and he will not be available coming up on Sunday versus the Giants, Sarah.
All right, so you were out when the Deontay Johnson suspension came down, as we mentioned. So what are your thoughts? Do you feel like they're calling it pretty accurately? Like it's not a big distraction? Or do you feel like there is a little bit more than they're letting on?
I think it's definitely the latter. Now, the impact, is it impactful from a distraction standpoint? I don't view it as an impactful distraction, but I think that they're all downplaying it. Right? I think whether it's Harbaugh, his teammates, whatever, they're clearly downplaying it and trying to move forward, which that's all you can do. You don't want to make something bigger of this. But as I think we've discussed in the past, Deontay wasn't expected to come in and be the guy. He was supposed to be insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of it, there was so much reaction to this, and I was tweeting from Sweden, and I tried to keep up with as much of it as possible. And a lot of what I saw was look at his body of work, and this is from people responding to tweets, whether it's me, you, whatever. And you let me know if you found similar as well. A lot of people were responding to me and saying, "Look at his body of work. Why isn't he playing? Why doesn't he have a prominent role? He wasn't brought in for that." It's not about what have you done for me in the past. It's what have you done for me lately. And I'm not saying he can't be impactful for them down the stretch. They brought him in for basically nothing, to be an insurance piece for guys that have really established themselves. A number one, an arguable number one in Zay Flowers, who's heading for potentially his first Pro Bowl season in year 2. And Rashad Bateman, who coming off an extension, team friendly, has actually met expectations for what those numbers dictate, what Eric DeCosta brought him in to do. And so I didn't necessarily understand the reaction of frustration that Deontay should be this, he should be that. He was meant to be a depth piece for them, and anything more would be gravy.
Right.
That was my thought on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think your word of impact is a good one. Like you don't want to like underplay it, but you also don't want to overplay it. And so like, what's the impact? So to me, like with the 3 that Jeff Zrebiec had cited to John Harbaugh, with Marcus Williams, I'd say that hits a 0 or a 1 on a scale to 10 of distraction. He was playing terribly, and he was benched. He has not complained. He has not put up a fit. He has been completely professional. So that to me, on a distraction level, hits a from. So I want to make sure that we're like making something very clear. Benching somebody for poor play is just part of football. That's not losing a locker room. That's you're not cutting it. We got to put somebody else in that will. Okay.
Hence Marlon's comments.
Exactly. Hence Marlon's comments. And we just read from the defense how all of them held each other accountable. And it was like, hey, either you're going to get with it or you're going to sit. That seemed like a full defensive team mentality. Buy-in. Using the word buy-in. To me, reading the reports of what was going on, the defense is bought in on the changes that were made on defense. Right? Like,
Sure,
how do you
sure.
read that defense? How do you read those quotes and that story any other way? So when you ask John Harbaugh, is there buy-in? Well, there's probably not buy-in from Marcus Williams. I'm sure he still believes in himself, but he's being professional. There clearly wasn't buy-in from Eddie Jackson, but that's an Eddie Jackson problem because he wasn't playing to a level. Like, I'm not going to have you play if you play poorly, but hey, you put up a fit. So now I'm going to play you. That's not how this works. So there for sure was buy-in on the defensive side. Okay. And so the Eddie Jackson, I might put that as a distraction, maybe as like a 2 or 3, because he obviously said something or did something that made him not travel and then was cut. But we're talking about a depth guy that his cut didn't even make national media, not even a whisper. So how is that? That's barely a distraction. Okay, barely. Now, Deontay, I would put it on a scale from 1 to 10. I'd put Deontay at like a 4. Because Bobby, you weren't here the next day when I was trying to do a show on it. In my mind, like that night I was going to bed and I was like, okay, well, there's not a whole lot of national reaction. For the show, we usually try to get national reaction. And so I was like, tomorrow morning, I'll get up. I'll watch all the regular shows. I'll watch Get Up. I'll watch First Take. I'll watch like all of them. The only national show that I could find that morning that had even mentioned it was Good Morning Football. That was
People
it.
didn't care. People didn't
People
care.
didn't care. And it's partly because Deontay's history, and it's partly because at best he's your wide receiver 3. So I get from like those that are in it every day with us, like the chat that's here with us every single day. Right now we got 2,200 people. There's like a good, like these people are in the weeds every day. So to us and to them, it was like huge news, but it barely scratched the surface. Now, let me give you an example that did more than scratching the surface. Have you been watching Philadelphia right now? Philadelphia
AJ's comments.
Yes, Philadelphia is on a 9-game winning streak. And their star receiver was asked after their last win, what can you guys improve? And he says, passing. Bobby, that would be like if somebody asked you, hey, Bobby, how can you improve the vault? And you say, co-hosting. I'd be like,
Yeah.
Take it easy, bro. And
Right.
then on top of it, I can't remember the guy's name, but you know how players often go on like local radio shows. They have like weekly shows, like what Roquan Smith did with us last year, or like what people do with 105.7 The Fan often. One of the teammates, he's like, hey, I'm just going to be honest. He's like, number 1 could probably try harder. Number 11, he's trying. It's like basically throwing AJ Brown under the bus.
This was
So
Brandon Graham.
It was
a
Brandon
highly
Graham who did it?
respected Eagle.
Okay,
Brandon
I didn't-
Graham, who
okay.
just went down for the year. And those comments obviously hold a lot of weight.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just bringing it up to like, and by the way, I need the Eagles to get it together because they have the Steelers coming up. So can you guys get this fixed? And then after the Steelers, do what you got to do, but get your locker room together over there. So to me, when you're like comparing the situations, if this was like a star receiver, or if this was a Hollywood Brown where he's like, what's the point of having soldiers? Like that hit a certain level because that's a star receiver calling out your offensive coordinator. But in this situation, like we're talking about at best the wide receiver 3, unless somebody else gets down and is injured. It's not hitting national news. He did get suspended. So I'm sure there were words. Obviously, Lamar Jackson has had to speak to him. Reporters have said that. So to me, it hits a 4 because it's like the middle to the back of your roster of wide receiver. That's where it's at. And it's not even hitting national news. So to me, because we're in the weeds, it feels bigger, but I honestly don't think. I think for me, it hits a 4. I can see the chat. They say it's way more, but for me, that's all it is.
Well, I think those numbers that you just tallied up for all 3 specific situations, Eddie, Marcus, and now Deontay, I think those are fair.
Yeah.
Now, when you add those together, that should be a part of the conversation as well. 4 + 3 + 2, is that what you did? So
or a 0 plus a 1 plus a 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. You had Marcus 0 to 1. Is that what it was?
Yeah, but more
Okay.
at 0 because he hasn't said anything. Like
Okay.
it's like and then the team was all bought in.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I think your tallying is fine. It's just the perfect storm nature to it, and once you start tallying it on top of some of the other adversity that they've faced, specifically not being able to put up points should be a part of the conversation too. And so enter Justin Tucker. We know that he is having
this one to me is more a bigger deal. Yes.
This is the most trying year of his career. I don't think that there's any hyperbole about that. John Harbaugh was asked about Justin during his press conference. He said that he spoke to Justin and he believes he's coming back from the bye week in a good place. Justin himself checked in with the media as well. This is also courtesy of Bowie TV and Karita Parks reporting.
It was good to get back in here first thing this morning. See all the guys. I mean, I was here all week for the most part, anyways, in and out of the building. But it's good to come back in, see everybody. Get in the meeting room, get out on the practice field, and just get right back to work.
Now, of course, Sarah, Twitter reacting accordingly, saying that he looks terrible, he looks exhausted, he looks this, that, and the other. I don't necessarily see that. I just see
helmet off.
Yeah, I see the same old Justin Tucker, probably post-practice and being courteous of his time and generous with his time as he always is with the media. But now kind of the question becomes, Sarah, as we mentioned at the top, I got my needed reset. The Ravens potentially got theirs as a team. But did Justin get the reset that he needed individually to come back and try and turn this season around? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, time will tell. Can I back up and ask? And this is what's nice about having you back is like we can both check in on chat a little bit more. For those that are saying that I'm underplaying, right? And I want to ask you this and them. So like Evan and Chris, I appreciate the feedback. You guys think it's a bigger deal than what I'm saying. So let me ask you this. Let's take Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson. What specifically are they not bought in on, Bobby? Like what is their issue?
Marcus and Eddie?
Marcus and Eddie, what were their issues? And Marcus, we're like assuming he has an
performance.
Issue. It's how much they get to play, correct?
Performance.
Yeah. Okay. Did John Harbaugh make the correct decision? John Harbaugh, Zach Orr, whoever else had a hand in it. Did they make the correct decision in benching Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson?
Yes.
Yes. So what are we debating here? That's a Eddie Jackson problem and a Marcus Williams problem, not a buy-in problem. That's why I'm like confused. Like everybody's like, it feels to me, and chat can tell me if I'm wrong. It feels to me that those that are already upset with John and for some fair reasoning, that now they want to pile on and they want to make it a bigger deal to make it look like Harbaugh's a problem. And Harbaugh has his own problems. It was the correct decision to bench those guys. These are grown men who are professionals and get paid a lot. Now, if you want to criticize Eric DaCosta for the contract he gave Marcus Williams and all of that, that's different. But when we're talking about locker room buy-in, it's the correct decision to bench them. And if they had a problem with it, then they should have played better. Now, I could maybe see people saying, well, what about Deontay Johnson? He deserves more. And I agree. I think Deontay Johnson deserves wide receiver 3, but he's been played as wide receiver 5. So you could maybe criticize the decision there, but then he lost all my sympathy when he had an opportunity and said, no, thanks.
Right. On top of, even albeit a small sample size, on top of underperformance, 1 for 5 so far in Lamar Jackson targets.
Right. So how is this egg on like Harbaugh's face, which is what I feel like people are trying to make it? He made the right decisions with Eddie and with Williams. You could criticize him, say, okay, well, you should have played it more for Deontay. But then when that time came, he said, no, thanks. So that's a Deontay problem. This isn't an egg on. Now, I disagree with Harbaugh with Ben Cleveland and Daniel Fa'alele.
Yeah.
Now, if you you can I have criticized him for that. But these other situations, I just feel like people are trying to make it a John Harbaugh problem when I feel like he's made the right decisions with it.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
If that's not necessarily the feeling that I was getting from the chat, but maybe we were looking at different comments.
Maybe I'm
what I
looking
was
at
more
it differently.
what I was more so getting as from a feeling, and I think what I'm saying as well is that there has been a lot of it's felt like an uphill climb.
Yeah.
and I'm looking at it more as less of a John Harbaugh thing, because to your point, as you get into the nitty gritty of each one of these decisions, the right ones have been made. Now, you just referenced a couple that we wish would have been made months ago, and still
or that
can
I
be
wish
made.
you'd bring in a kicker on the practice squad. Like, I'll criticize that. Like, bring one in, you know.
Okay.
So anyway, I just feel like there's some out there trying to pile on is all.